Hello and welcome. This is going to be my review of the Tyranid Hive Tyrant, specifically the one with wings. Now we're in November, so I'm going to try and bring you a Tyranid video every single day, as I said, although we've only got a couple more weeks of November or November left. So if you're into Tyranids or you just want to find out a little bit more about them, this is probably a good place to be right now. A bit of a backstory before I go into the review is I've liked the look of Tyranids. I always thought they were quite sort of basic looking, like the little Hormagaunts and the Termagants. I always thought that they were a little bit, and I thought the Gene Stealers looked pretty creepy. But this was back in the era of like the metal big monstrous creatures like the Carnifex. I always heard how sort of scary Carnifexes were and things on the battlefield, similar to sort of Wraith Lords back then. So when I found out that Games Workshop were not re-releasing them, but they were making, an 8th edition codex, I couldn't help myself to get it and to build up a little force of Tyranids myself. I'd built up a few models of Tyranids from different box sets over the years, and I thought a good place to start would be the Start Collecting set. And this Hive Tyrant comes in the 2016 Start Collecting set. You can buy him separately if you wish to. I think if you do so, he's £33. So you're only £17 off the £50 set if you do get him in that set. And I strongly recommend you do that. I mean, that Start Collecting set is a great set. I'll have the review out in a few days' time. It's a set that you can buy 2 or 3 of quite easily, because the Hive Tyrant in here, you can have him walking about on his feet, you can turn him into a Swarm Lord, you can turn him into this, you can have him with different weapon options. It really is the full Hive Tyrant kit, and there's plenty of options and things that you can choose to build this model. I went for the flying Hive Tyrant version with no sort of range weapons. That's just the look I wanted to go for. I'm not a big player. I don't play many games at all, so I like to build sort of theme armies, and which is great because in a way it gives me more freedom to build the models that I want to build. So instead of equipping it with, double flesh borers or whatever, I can just equip it to make it look as cool as I want to. As I want it to look. And I really like these big wings. After building Mortarion, yes, these wings aren't as detailed as Mortarions with all the veins and the little pustules and stuff, but they're still pretty cool, and they still make a big impact, and just gives a huge area to the model. It looks like this huge winged stuff of nightmares, really. I didn't have any issues. Yeah, the wings are heavy, so you are going to sort of need to hold them, maybe get a clamp or two. You're all pretty creative in ways of keeping pieces of models still for a long period of time. But yeah, no issues really, other than the wings, which just require a bit of patience, to be fair. I really like the long tail with this pincer on the end, the prehensile tail I think it's called, and I love these huge sharp talons. Excellent. The face of the model, it's fantastic. You've got these teeth and this tongue, and then you've got this horn, this bone sword type horn. Looks incredible. If and when I do get another Hive Tyrant, which is a very high possibility, I'll definitely be turning him into a Swarm Lord. And I think the tactic I'd probably use is drop him down in a Tyrannocyte. But I'm still very new to Tyranids, very new to this whole model base. So I'm still looking at models, and at the moment I'm just going to go for models that I really like the look of, rather than the rules and things, because I'm sure there are a lot of competitive army sets out there. Now, because it's been a few weeks since I built this model, I don't have the spare parts with me, but there are a lot of spare parts. Everything from your guns to different feet and legs to hooves to loads of different swords and crushing claws, and you name it. There's lots of different adrenal glands. Well, there's one obviously. Loads of different options that you can equip this model with. It's a really decent kit, even if you're not able to get the 2016 Start Collecting set and you're just thinking about buying the model itself for £33. Still a very decent kit with a lot of options, and I still think it looks great. So that's the Hive Tyrant. I'll just do a little size comparison. So I've got a Tyranid Warrior here, which is almost like their Space Marine equivalent, but you know, with 3 wounds. So that's him compared to a warrior, which is a troop choice. So dwarfs a lot of things that you'll have on your table, apart from some of the bigger Tyranid creatures. And next to a Space Marine, it completely dwarfs a mini Space Marine. But I just thought I'd do that size comparison too. It is a big model, and definitely gives you a lot of presence as your HQ choice. Now, the sort of downside to that is that it's going to draw a lot of fire, but maybe that's a good thing because he does get an invulnerable save, which I'll talk about later. Might as well just show you him next to a Gene Stealer. Gene Stealer's troop choice as well, and yeah, he's a lot bigger than the Gene Stealer. So it really is a nice sort of centerpiece for a Tyranid army, especially with the wings. Looks fantastic. So in this part of the review, I'll just talk to you about his rules. Now, I'm using the 8th edition rules, the Tyranid Codex that just came out last weekend. He is an HQ choice, and there's a few choices for him pretty much. So the Hive Tyrant, it comes after the Brood Lord, but before the Swarm Lord and before the Tyranid Prime. Incidentally, I'd probably one of your warriors in the book, you can change him into a Tyranid Prime, and that's basically what a Tyranid Prime is. So just to sort of give you a comparison there. So the Hive Tyrant, it's a power level of 9, and its base points is 143 points. With the wings, it becomes a power level of 11 and base points of 170. You're still going to have to buy all your little extras and things on top of those. Some of its characteristics do change as it suffers damage, unfortunately, unlike the Brood Lord and a Tyranid Prime and a Neurothroat, they don't get affected. If it's got between 7 and 12 wounds, its movement is 9 inches without wings, but 16 inches with wings. Its weapon skill is 2+, and ballistic skill is 3+. Wounds between 4 and 6, its movement is 7 inches, but with wings it's 12, and the weapon skill is 3+, ballistic skill stays the same at 3+2, and the wounds, if it's only got 1 to 3 wounds, its movement is 5 inches, but with wings it can still fly 8 inches, and its weapon skill drops down to 4+, with ballistic skill 4+. So even when it's at death's door, it can still fly about at 8 inches, and it's still got a 50-50 chance of hitting things in close combat and shooting things. Its strength is a 6, its toughness is 7, which is pretty good. It's got 12 wounds, obviously they drop as it takes damage. It's got 4 attacks, leadership is 10, and it's got a save of 3+. Now that's brilliant, because its save normally is 3+, but it has a 4+ invulnerable. So 3+ normal, 4+ invulnerable, that's quite decent. It's armed with 2 pairs of monstrous scything talons and a prehensile pincer tail. Now the monstrous scything talons, strength user, so that's a 6, AP -3, so that's pretty good, and damage is 3, that's excellent. You can also re-roll hit rolls of a 1 for the weapon, and if the bearer has more than 1 pair of monstrous scything talons, it can make 1 additional attack with this weapon each time it fights. The prehensile pincer tail, again strength user, AP is 0 though, but it is damage D3. And each time the bearer fights, it can make 1 and only 1 attack with the weapon. So having an extra attack that does D3 damage isn't too bad, but of course they're probably going to get saves from that. The war gear options, it can replace 1 pair of monstrous scything talons with 1 item from the monstrous biocannons or monstrous bioweapons list. The monstrous biocannons would be 2 death splitters with slime and maggots, 2 devourers with brain leech worms, a stranglethorn cannon or a heavy venom cannon. I think I mentioned that earlier. And the monstrous bioweapons list is monstrous rending claws, monstrous bone swords or lash whip, and monstrous bone sword. And the kit includes all of those options, which is fantastic. As I said before, if you choose to equip the model with wings, then it ups the power rating to +2, so that's 11, and then it just uses a second move characteristic. It can also have toxin sacs and or adrenal glands, so you can give them both if you want. Abilities, it's got Shadow in the Warp and Synapse or Synapse, whichever you prefer. And because this is kind of my first really Nidvember video, I think it's probably best if I go through Shadow in the Warp and Synapse in this video. Shadow in the Warp, enemy psychers must subtract 1 from any psychic tests they make if they're within 18 inches of any units with this ability, but Tyranid psychers aren't affected. So that's pretty good. So he's already an 18-inch area of effect against Psykers, that's cool. And then Synapse, high fleet units automatically pass morale tests if they are within 12 inches of friendly units with this ability. So he's given another bubble there, another 12-inch bubble of passing morale tests. That's awesome too. Another ability is the Will of the Hive Mind. The range of Hive Mind Tyrant Synapse ability is 18 inches rather than 12 inches. That's awesome. So you've got a same 18-inch bubble, so that affects the Synapse rule in terms of it's actually 18 inches, not 12. That's awesome. Swooping Assault. So during deployment, you can set up a Hive Tyrant with wings circling high above instead of placing it on the battlefield. So you can basically deep strike him. At the end of the movement phases, it can swoop down and set it anywhere on the battlefield that is more than 9 inches from enemy models. It's got Death Throes. If the model is reduced to 0 wounds, you roll a dice before removing the model from the battlefield, and on a 6, it lashes out in its death throes. Each unit within 3 inches suffers D3 mortal wounds. That's pretty awesome. Within 3 inches, so if it's in melee combat, you've got a chance there of inflicting another D3 mortal wounds on things. So that's like a final sort of farewell. And then Psychic Barrier, it does have a 4+ invulnerable save. Now the Hive Tyrant is a Psyker, pretty much. It can attempt to manifest 2 psychic powers in each friendly psychic phase, and attempt to deny 1 psychic power in each enemy psychic phase. It knows Smite, like mostly everything does, and 2 psychic powers from the Hive Mind Discipline. We might as well talk about them, because again, this is my first Nidvember video, and it's worth just talking about the Tyranid psychic powers. So the Hive Mind Discipline, D6 result between 1 and 6. So on a 1, you get Dominion. It has a warp charge value of 5, and if manifested, select a friendly Tyranid unit within 36 inches of the Psyker that has the instinctive behaviour ability, and until the end of the next psychic phase, that unit ignores its instinctive behaviour ability and automatically passes morale tests. That's a really good buff. Catalyst, warp charge value of 6, and if manifested, you select a friendly Tyranid unit within 18 inches of the Psyker. Until the start of the next psychic phase, each time the unit loses a wound, you roll a d6. On a 5+, the damage is ignored, and the unit does not lose that wound. It's a little bit like Disgustingly Resilient there. The Horror has a warp charge value of 6, and if manifested, a unit within 24 inches that is visible to the Psyker. At the start of the next psychic phase, the unit must subtract 1 from their hit rolls and leadership characteristic. That's a good modifier to enemy units. On a 4, has a warp charge value of 6. If manifested, you select Tyranid unit within 18 inches of Psyker, and the unit can shoot this turn even if it advanced without suffering any penalties to hit rolls and moving and shooting heavy weapons, advancing and shooting assault weapons. In addition, the unit can charge this turn even if it advanced, though not if it fell back. So that's pretty awesome. Paroxysm, it's a warp charge value of 5, and you choose an enemy unit within 18 inches of the Psyker, and until the next psychic phase, that unit cannot fight in the fight phase until all other units are able to do so. If the target unit has the ability that allows to fight first, it instead fights as if it didn't have this ability. Both players have units that cannot fight, then alternate choosing which of those units to fight with, starting with the player whose turn is taking place. That's an interesting one. Psychic Scream. Warp charge value of 5, manifested, enemy unit within 18 inches suffers D3 mortal wounds. And then if it's also a Psyker, you roll 2 dice. And if the result is higher than the leadership characteristic, you randomly select one of their psychic powers, and they can no longer use that psychic power. That's awesome, the Psychic Scream. So you're basically getting rid of another psychic's psychic power forever. So you don't want to be on the receiving end of that. And with that, that's the end of the rules section of my review. In summary, I think it's a solid unit to take in a Tyranid force. It's not too many power points or points in general. It's got a lot of wounds, got the 12 wounds, got good toughness. You equip it with wings, and it can fly about the battlefield at 16 inches. It can deep strike down, cause some havoc. Yes, it's not the best in terms of shooting unless you give it a venom cannon or something like that, or death spitters or venom or devourers, some kind of ranged weapon. And yes, in combat it might not be the best, comparing it to the Swarm Lord, which has a whopping 6 attacks to its 4, or its strength 8 for that matter. But it's still a solid choice, and it looks really awesome with a load of other flying creatures too. A great kit, a great model, some great rules. It really is a fantastic unit. But I want to hear your thoughts on it, so please do put all of your comments down below. I'd love to hear your experiences of them, what they wrecked, specifically if you've got a Swarm Lord as well. Please do put it all down below as always. Thank you ever so much for joining me today. Thank you for watching. For the Norn Queen.